Your phone buzzes at 11:47 p.m. It's her again. The third text today, the second one tonight. She wants to vent about her co-worker drama, needs validation about her outfit choice, or just wants someone to entertain her because she's bored. And like always, you respond within minutes because you've trained yourself to believe that being available makes you valuable. But what if you didn't respond? What if you put the phone down and went to sleep? What if you stopped being the 24/7 emotional support service that women have learned to take for granted? Most men never discover what happens when they become unavailable because they're terrified of the consequences. They're afraid she'll lose interest, find someone else, or decide they don't care enough. So they remain perpetually on call, always ready to provide whatever emotional labour is demanded of them. Today, I'm going to show you what happens when you stop being available to women, not out of anger or revenge, but out of self-respect and strategic understanding of human psychology. Because the moment you stop being accessible on demand, you discover who actually values you versus who simply uses you. Most men have unknowingly transformed themselves into emotional emergency buttons for the women in their lives. Women push the button when they need attention, validation, or entertainment, then put you back on the shelf until the next time they need something from you. This dynamic feels good to men because it creates the illusion of being needed and important. Every time she reaches out, every crisis she brings to you, every moment she chooses to share with you feels like evidence of your value in her life. You mistake being useful for being valued. But emergency buttons aren't treasured possessions. They're utilities. They're only thought about when they're needed and completely forgotten when the crisis passes. The more reliably you respond to her emotional emergencies, the more she takes your availability for granted. This pattern creates a psychological addiction where you become dependent on being needed. You start to equate your worth with your usefulness. You begin to fear that if you're not constantly solving her problems, providing emotional support, or being available for her needs, you'll become irrelevant to her life. The emergency button psychology also trains women to see you as a resource rather than a person. They don't think about your needs, your boundaries, or your own emotional state because you've trained them to believe that your only function is to serve their emotional requirements. When you stop being an emergency button, something shocking happens. Women are forced to develop their own emotional regulation skills. They can no longer dump their psychological waste on you and expect you to process it for them. They must learn to handle their own crises, manage their own emotions, and solve their own problems. Excessive availability is not kindness, it's addiction. You're addicted to being needed, to feeling important, to believing that your constant accessibility makes you indispensable. But like all addictions, this one serves your short-term emotional needs while destroying your long-term well-being. The addiction manifests in compulsive behaviours that you've rationalised as consideration. You check your phone constantly to see if she's messaged. You respond to texts immediately even when you're busy with important tasks. You drop your own plans when she expresses need for your time or attention. This addiction keeps you in a constant state of psychological availability, always prepared to be interrupted, always ready to shift your focus to her needs, always positioning her emotional state as more important than your own productive focus. Women can sense this addictive energy, and it repels them rather than attracting them. Desperate availability communicates low value because high-value people are selective about how they invest their time and attention. When you're always available, you signal that you have nothing better to do. The addiction also prevents you from developing your own life, goals and interests because you're always on standby for someone else's needs. You become a supporting character in her life story rather than the protagonist of your own. Breaking this addiction requires accepting that being less available might result in some women losing interest in you. But this loss reveals something important. They were never interested in you as a person. They were interested in you as a service provider. Every time you react impulsively to female demands for attention, respond immediately to non-urgent messages, or allow yourself to be pulled into someone else's emotional drama, you're donating your psychological energy to people who aren't reciprocating that investment. Energy vampires are people who consistently drain others' emotional resources while providing little value in return. They're not necessarily evil or malicious. They're simply operating from a framework where your energy exists to serve their needs rather than your own purposes. The vampire system works through creating artificial urgency around their needs, while treating your needs as optional. Her problems require immediate attention. Your problems can wait. Her emotions demand instant validation. Your emotions are inconvenient complications. This system is particularly effective with men who have been trained to prioritize female comfort over their own well-being. You've been taught that good men sacrifice themselves for others, especially women, and this conditioning makes you vulnerable to energy extraction. The vampire system also operates through intermittent reinforcement. Occasionally, she provides just enough appreciation, affection, or attention to keep you invested in the dynamic. These rare positive experiences feel so good compared to the usual energy drain that they become addictive. When you stop being available for energy extraction, vampires typically escalate their demands initially. They may create bigger crises, express more urgent needs, or attempt to guilt you into returning to your previous availability. This escalation is actually proof that your boundaries are working. Being constantly available makes you completely predictable, and predictability is the death of attraction. When women can count on your immediate response, your constant accommodation, and your reliable availability, you become background furniture in their emotional landscape. Predictability eliminates mystery, challenge, and excitement from interactions. Women know exactly how you'll respond to their messages, exactly how available you'll be for their needs, and exactly how much of your time and energy they can claim without reciprocation. This predictability also eliminates respect, because respect is earned through boundaries, standards, and selective availability. When you're predictably accessible, you're not demonstrating any standards about how your time should be valued or how you should be treated. The predictability trap is particularly dangerous because it feels like reliability and dependability, qualities that men believe women want in partners. But there's a crucial difference between being reliable in your character and being predictable in your availability. Reliable character means you can be trusted to keep your word, honor your commitments, and maintain your values under pressure. Predictable availability means you can be counted on to drop everything whenever someone wants something from you, regardless of what you are doing or how it affects your own priorities. Breaking predictability patterns requires introducing strategic unpredictability into your availability. Sometimes you respond quickly, sometimes you don't respond at all. Sometimes you're available for plans, sometimes you're busy with your own priorities. This unpredictability creates intrigue rather than boredom. When you're constantly available and eager to please, you become a blank screen onto which women project whatever they need you to be in any given moment. You're not seen as an individual with your own needs, preferences, and boundaries. You're seen as a resource that adapts to meet their requirements. This projection screen dynamic prevents women from seeing your authentic self because you're always adjusting yourself to meet their expectations or needs. They never encounter the real you because you're always performing the version of you that you think they want to see. The projection screen problem also attracts women who are drawn to men they can control and manipulate. These women are not interested in partnership with an equal. They're interested in having a compliant resource that serves their emotional needs without making demands of their own. When you stop being a projection screen by establishing boundaries and maintaining your own agenda, it forces women to see you as an actual person rather than a utility. Some women will lose interest because they were never interested in you as an individual. They were interested in what you could provide for them. But the women who remain interested when you stop being endlessly accommodating are revealing something important. They're attracted to you as a person rather than as a service provider. These are the women worth investing your time and energy in. The projection screen problem also prevents you from developing your own identity because you're constantly morphing to meet external expectations rather than cultivating your authentic self. If you're starting to recognize how your constant availability has been making you less attractive and more disposable to women, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. What I'm revealing today about strategic unavailability could transform how women perceive and treat you. When you become strategically unavailable, you create scarcity around access to your time, attention, and emotional energy. This scarcity transforms you from a common resource that anyone can access to a premium experience that must be earned. Scarcity works through basic psychological principles that govern how humans value resources. Things that are abundant and easily accessible are taken for granted. Things that are scarce and require effort to obtain are treasured and respected. Your strategic unavailability sends a message that your time has value, that your attention is selective, and that access to your emotional energy must be earned through reciprocal investment. This message is communicated through your behavior rather than through words. The scarcity strategy doesn't mean being difficult, rude, or deliberately unresponsive. It means being selective about when you're available, discerning about which requests deserve immediate attention, and protective of your time and energy. This selectivity naturally filters out women who are primarily interested in what you could provide for them, while attracting women who are interested in mutual exchange. The women who respect your boundaries and work to earn your attention are the ones worth developing relationships with. Scarcity creation also involves developing a life that's genuinely full of activities, goals, and interests that matter to you independent of female attention. When you have legitimate reasons to be unavailable, your unavailability feels authentic rather than artificial. The moment you stop being constantly available, you initiate a psychological power shift that reverses the typical dynamic in your relationships with women. Instead of them controlling when and how you interact, you begin setting the terms of engagement. This power shift happens because availability equals vulnerability in psychological terms. When you're always accessible, you're psychologically vulnerable to interruption, manipulation, and exploitation. When you become selectively available, you regain control over your psychological state. The power shift is often dramatic and immediate. Women who have grown accustomed to your instant responses and constant accommodation suddenly find themselves having to compete for your attention rather than taking it for granted. This competition for your attention naturally increases your value in their minds because they are experiencing the effort required to access you. The psychological principle is simple. People value what they have to work for more than what is freely given. The power shift also reveals the true nature of your relationships with women. Those who become angry, manipulative, or distant when you establish boundaries were never interested in your well-being. They were interested in your utility. Women who respect your new boundaries and adjust their behavior to earn your attention are demonstrating that they value you as a person rather than just as a resource. These relationships can develop into genuine partnerships based on mutual respect. Strategic unavailability is essential for psychological individuation, the process of becoming a complete individual rather than a collection of reactions to other people's needs and expectations. This process requires creating space between yourself and the demands of others. Individuation cannot happen while you're constantly responding to external demands because individuation requires internal focus, self-reflection, and the development of your own values, goals, and identity. Constant availability prevents this internal work from occurring. The individuation process involves separating your identity from your usefulness to others. You must discover who you are when you're not serving someone else's needs, solving someone else's problems, or providing someone else's emotional regulation. This separation is often uncomfortable because it means facing the emptiness or anxiety that you've been avoiding through constant service to others. Many men stay busy serving others' needs precisely to avoid confronting their own internal landscape. But this discomfort is necessary for psychological growth. Only by sitting with your own thoughts, feelings, and experiences without distraction can you develop authentic self-knowledge and internal authority. The individuation process also requires accepting that some people will not like the individuated version of you. They preferred the compliant, available, accommodating version because it served their interests better than your authentic self does. Strategic withdrawal is not passive-aggressive behavior or emotional manipulation. It's the conscious choice to remove your energy from dynamics that don't serve your highest good. This withdrawal creates space for you to develop your own life while forcing others to respect your boundaries. The withdrawal strategy involves becoming less available for non-essential interactions, less responsive to non-urgent communications, and less accommodating to requests that don't align with your priorities. This isn't about being mean, it's about being selective. Strategic withdrawal also means removing yourself from conversations, situations, and relationships that consistently drain your energy without providing reciprocal value. You stop participating in one-sided dynamics where you give more than you receive. This withdrawal often triggers protest behaviors from women who have become accustomed to your constant availability. They may attempt to guilt you, create artificial crises, or escalate their demands to force you back into your previous patterns. These protest behaviors are actually evidence that your withdrawal is effective. If your absence didn't matter, there would be no protest. The intensity of their reaction often correlates with how much they were depending on your availability to regulate their own emotional state. Maintaining your withdrawal during these protest phases is crucial. If you return to previous availability patterns after initial resistance, You teach others that your boundaries are negotiable and that persistence will eventually wear down your resolve. When you stop being constantly available, something remarkable happens. Your value in women's minds increases rather than decreases. This value inversion occurs because scarcity creates desire while abundance creates indifference. The inversion effect works through contrast. Women who have grown accustomed to your instant responses and constant accommodation suddenly experience what it's like when you're not available. This contrast makes them aware of what they've been taking for granted. The psychological mechanism behind this effect is loss aversion. People fear losing something they have more than they appreciate gaining something new. When you become unavailable, women experience the potential loss of access to your attention and support. This fear of loss motivates behavior change. Women who previously took your availability for granted may start investing more effort in earning your attention, communicating more respectfully, or reciprocating your investment in ways they never did when you were constantly accessible. The value inversion also occurs because your selective availability communicates that your time and attention are valuable resources rather than unlimited commodities. This perception of value makes you more attractive rather than less attractive. The effect is particularly powerful with women who are accustomed to easily manipulating men through emotional demands. Your immunity to their usual tactics makes you stand out as different from other men they can easily control. Strategic unavailability serves as an automatic filtering system that screens out women who are primarily interested in what you could provide for them while identifying women who are genuinely interested in mutual partnership. The filter works by creating a requirement that women invest effort to access your time and attention. Those who are unwilling to make this effort reveal that they were never truly interested in you as a person. They were interested in you as a convenience. Women who respect your boundaries, adapt their communication patterns to align with your availability, and invest effort in earning your attention are demonstrating genuine interest in relationship rather than just resource extraction. The filtering system also reveals character traits that are difficult to identify when you're constantly available. You discover who becomes manipulative when they can't control you, who respects boundaries versus who tries to violate them, and who values reciprocal exchange versus who expects one-sided service. This filtering process may result in losing some relationships, but these losses are actually gains because they free you from dynamics that were serving others' interests at your expense. The relationships that survive the filtering process become stronger and more satisfying. The filter system also protects you from wasting time and energy on women who will never appreciate your investment, because their interest was never in you as an individual, but in what you could provide for their emotional needs. Strategic unavailability allows you to develop authentic masculine presence, the quality of being fully present with yourself rather than constantly focused on meeting others' expectations or needs. This presence is magnetic because it's rare among men. Masculine presence cannot develop while you're constantly reacting to external demands because presence requires internal focus, self-awareness, and groundedness in your own reality, rather than constant adaptation to others' emotional states. The development of presence involves learning to sit comfortably with yourself, to enjoy your own company, and to find fulfillment in your own thoughts, activities, and goals, rather than constantly seeking validation through service to others. This self-contained quality is attractive to women because it signals psychological strength, emotional independence, and the kind of stability that creates safety in relationships. Women are drawn to men who are complete in themselves, rather than men who need completion from others. Masculine presence also involves developing the ability to remain calm and centered when others are emotional, dramatic, or demanding. This emotional stability becomes a source of strength that others can rely on without draining. The presence that develops through strategic unavailability is not cold or disconnected. It's warm but boundaried, available but selective, caring but not codependent. This balance is what creates truly attractive masculine energy. When you stop being constantly available, you reclaim enormous amounts of psychological energy that you can redirect toward your own goals, growth, and well-being. This energy reclamation often results in dramatic improvements in other areas of your life. The energy you are spending on immediate responses to messages, constant worry about others' emotional states, and endless accommodation of others' needs becomes available for pursuing your career goals, developing your health, cultivating your interests, and building your character. This energy reclamation creates an upward spiral, where your increased focus on self-improvement makes you more attractive, which creates more options in relationships, which reduces your desperation for any particular woman's approval, which allows you to maintain better boundaries. The reclaimed energy also allows you to develop internal sources of satisfaction, fulfillment, and validation, rather than depending on external approval for your emotional well-being. This independence makes you less needy and more attractive. Energy reclamation involves not just stopping energy drains, but also actively investing your energy in activities and relationships that provide positive returns. You become strategic about where you direct your psychological resources. The fundamental truth about availability is that constant accessibility is not love, kindness, or consideration. It's often fear, codependency, and lack of self-respect disguised as virtue. True caring involves having boundaries that protect both parties from unhealthy dynamics. Women don't actually want men who are constantly available, because constant availability signals low value, lack of purpose, and absence of standards. They want men who are selectively available because selectivity indicates that their attention is valuable. The transformation that occurs when you stop being constantly available is not about becoming cold, cruel, or indifferent. It's about becoming strategic, selective, and self-respecting. It's about choosing when to be available based on your own assessment of what serves the relationship and your well-being. This strategic approach to availability doesn't make you less caring. It makes your caring more meaningful because it's chosen rather than compulsive. When you choose to be available, that choice carries weight because it could have gone differently. The men who master strategic unavailability discover that their relationships improve dramatically because they're no longer participating in the toxic dynamics that poison most male-female interactions. They attract better women while repelling women who are primarily interested in extraction rather than exchange. Your availability should be a gift you choose to give, not a service you feel obligated to provide. When you understand this distinction, you transform from being a resource that others consume to being a person that others value. The path to better relationships with women doesn't involve being more available. It involves being more selective about when and how you make yourself available. This selectivity communicates self-respect, which is the foundation of all respect from others. If this analysis of how strategic unavailability can transform your relationships has shown you that being less accessible can actually make you more valuable, subscribe to this channel for more insights into developing attractive masculine presence. Hit that notification bell because understanding these principles could revolutionize how women perceive and treat you. Share this video with any man who's tired of being taken for granted and wants to understand that respect is earned through boundaries, not through constant service. The difference between men who are valued and men who are used is often the difference between those who are selectively available and those who are constantly accessible.